Knowledge is Power by Charles Knight. Narrative summary. Step into a 19th century workshop. Belts hum, pistons pump, iron throws sparks, and you realize the strongest engine in the room isn't steam, it's knowledge. That's Charles Knight's thesis in Knowledge is Power. He's not writing a hymn to a machine, but a map of how ideas, tested, shared, and applied, turn coal into motion, iron into bridges, paper into schools, and a poor country into a capable one. The book is part panorama of the Industrial Revolution, part field guide for self-improvement, part moral argument about how a nation actually grows. Knight starts by redefining wealth, not piles of gold, but productive power, the ability to do more with the same hands. 3 inputs matter: labor, capital, and skill. Knowledge multiplies all 3. It turns brute force into intelligent force. It's the difference between pushing a cart and laying rails. He walks you through sectors where that multiplier shows itself. Coal becomes a universal solvent of effort. Burn it, boil water, and you get steam. Harness steam and you move wheels. Chain wheels to spindles and pumps, and the whole world accelerates. The separate condenser transforms Watt's engine from curiosity to standard, reliable, economical, replicable. Iron follows. Blast furnaces and puddling make more, better, cheaper metal. Machine tools sharpen tolerances. Precision breeds more precision in a loop that raises productivity across industries. Knight's point isn't just great men and inventions, it's systems, the way small improvements cascade once knowledge begins to circulate. Textiles give him his richest story. Hargreaves's spinning jenny, Arkwright's water frame, Crompton's mule, each invention builds on the insight before it, and each cuts the cost of cloth. That isn't just an industry triumph, it's a social change. Cheap cotton dresses better poor families. Consistent supply stabilizes prices. New tasks appear: fixing, maintaining, designing, organizing, so the shape of labor evolves. Knight resists both nostalgia for hand looms and crude triumphalism. He wants you to see connections. Practical tinkerers borrowing from scientific principles, capital organizing risk, skill migrating from individual hands into process and management. Then he widens the lens to networks. Roads and turnpikes reduce the friction of every trade. Canals cut the cost of bulk transport, so coal and grain become national rather than local. Railways pull time itself taut, schedules, standard hours, national markets, and the telegraph stitches the country's nerves to its limbs. Knight celebrates Rowland Hill's penny post as democratic technology. Cheap, reliable communication lets families coordinate, businesses plan, and trust grow. Knight's refrain, "Knowledge is infrastructure," comes alive. The unseen improvements, post routes, timetables, signaling systems, are as important as visible feats of iron and wood. Printing is a revolution of its own. Steam-driven presses and cheaper paper flood the country with newspapers and penny magazines. As a publisher and founding spirit behind the Society for the Diffusion of Useful Knowledge, Knight argues that practical, accurate information, how to draft a plan, how to calculate interest, how to ventilate a room, turns curiosity into capability. Mechanics institutes emerge. Evening classes where carpenters learn geometry, clerks learn drawing, and mill hands learn the chemistry of dyes. He urges readers to keep notebooks of experiments, to visit exhibitions. The Great Exhibition of 1851 is a syllabus as much as a spectacle. To swap techniques across trades. Cross-pollination is the magic. A potter borrowing from metallurgy, a weaver learning statistics, a builder learning fluid dynamics. The hard question of machinery and jobs? Knight doesn't duck it. New tools displace old tasks. Transitions hurt. Unscrupulous owners exploit. But over time, he argues, machinery lowers prices, expands demand, and creates safer, better-paid work, if and only if society tends the transition. His remedies are practical and moral. Apprenticeships that teach the why as well as the how, safety and sanitation informed by science, savings banks and friendly societies to cushion shocks, cooperatives to keep prices fair, and public policy that protects contract and property without granting permanent monopolies to the undeserving. In other words, technology must be matched by institutions and habits. That brings him to character. Knight's liberalism is 19th century in the best sense, pro-competition, pro-free trade, anti-privilege, but his through line is a moral economy. Honesty, punctuality, accuracy, sobriety, thrift. He treats these not as sermon words, but as production functions. Trust lowers transaction costs. A reputation opens credit. A promise kept keeps machines turning and deals flowing. He respects patents and copyrights as temporary encouragements, but warns against turning them into barriers that freeze ideas. Innovation thrives where knowledge circulates and can be improved by many hands. Home is part of his calculus. Gaslight extends productive and leisure hours. Clean water and sewage reduce disease. Ventilation keeps workshops and bedrooms healthy. Cheap soap and better stoves lift standards. He ties public health directly to productive power. A sick workforce is a poor country. And he argues for education for girls as well as boys, because a household managed with intelligence compounds national prosperity. Knight keeps returning to the doers. He pours respect on the foreman who reorganizes a shop floor and saves hours, the clerk who standardizes forms and stops errors, the mechanic who files a piece truer and keeps a mill running. Knowledge isn't only in books, it's embodied craft refined by repetition. But books, good ones, let a carpenter learn from a chemist and a seamstress from a mathematician. He wants readers to move between the bench and the page. He's not blind to shadows. The slums springing up next to new factories aren't signs of progress. They signal failure in housing and policy. Schools starved by class prejudice waste talent. Cheap gin undercuts the very habits industry needs. Knight's critique isn't an attack on industry, it's a demand that moral habits, civic institutions, and scientific insight be aligned so growth lifts the many rather than the few. How does this all translate into action? Knight's brief is simple and evergreen. Learn the why behind your tools. Don't just use a machine, understand the principle so you can fix and improve it. Keep a record of improvements, what you tried, what worked, what didn't. Learning compounds like interest. Join communities that share best practice, institutes, clubs, journals. Teach what you know and borrow shamelessly from other trades. Read across disciplines. Problems yield faster when you bring a second method to the table. And save a portion of every gain and reinvest in better tools and better habits. He also asks the state to do a few things well. Build and maintain the backbone, roads, posts, standards, set fair rules, property, contract, spread foundational knowledge, schools, public libraries, and then get out of the way. He's suspicious of privilege, charters that lock in incumbents, monopolies that pretend to be encouragements. He wants an open ecology where a clever apprentice can become a master, a small shop can scale, and failures can clear so better approaches replace them. What gives the book its warmth is that Knight never loses sight of the person behind the process. He imagines a mason who can read a plan instead of guess at angles, a spinner who understands fiber instead of losing hours to tangles, a clerk who can calculate interest instead of being cheated, a citizen who can weigh a policy instead of swallowing a slogan. Knowledge, in his telling, is not an ornament, it's dignity, a way to stand straighter in your work and your life. Read today, the wires and rails become cables and code. The penny post looks like the open internet. Mechanics institutes resemble open course platforms, and machine tools become developer tools and lab kits. The dangers map too. Displacement without preparation, monopolies cloaked in innovation, the temptation to treat people as inputs rather than partners. Knight's answer stays practical. Share the know-how, build the infrastructure, teach the why, honor the doers, and insist that character travel with technique. He closes not with a cheer, but with a charge. A nation that invests in minds will get better machines and better men. Progress isn't a parade, it's a workshop. It happens when a person in a small room learns a better way and then teaches it to the next person. The hum of belts and the ripple of pages turn out to be the same sound.
Featured phrase. Minds are the mightiest engines. Share knowledge, and it multiplies every other power.